Most people think the battle that changes their life will arrive with a warning, a crisis, a betrayal, a devastating loss, a moment so dramatic they cannot possibly ignore it. But that is not how lives are destroyed. They are destroyed quietly. One distracted morning, one compromised decision, one wasted hour at a time, until one day you wake up and realize you are living a life that feels unfamiliar, carrying dreams you never pursued and regrets you never intended to collect. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth, commanded armies through war, endured loss after loss, and carried responsibilities heavy enough to crush ordinary men. Yet every night, when the noise of the world finally faded, he returned to the same battlefield. Not Rome, not the frontier, not his enemies, his own mind, because he understood something most people never discover. The greatest force shaping your future is not what happens around you, it is what happens within you. Look carefully at your life, the chaos, the inconsistency, the goals abandoned halfway, the habits that keep returning no matter how many times you promise to change. What if none of these are the real problem? What if the real problem is that your mind has been ruled by forces you never consciously chose? Fear, doubt, comfort, distraction, impulse. For years they have sat on the throne, while your highest potential waited in silence, like a king locked outside the gates of his own kingdom. But tonight, that changes. Because in this video, I'm going to share 10 timeless Stoic laws forged through hardship, tested by emperors, warriors, philosophers, and men who remained unshaken while the world around them collapsed. These are not motivational tricks. They are principles of mental mastery. Principles that can strengthen your discipline, sharpen your focus, silence anxiety, eliminate weakness, and help you build a mind that remains steady regardless of what life throws at it. Stay until the end, because each law builds upon the one before it, and the final law is the one that gives power to all the others. Miss it, and everything remains fragile. Understand it, and you may never see yourself or your life the same way again. The first law is where every transformation begins, the law that decides who truly sits on the throne of your mind. Law 1, the law of the ruling thought. Every kingdom has a ruler, every army has a commander, every ship has a captain. Yet most people move through life without ever choosing who rules their mind. They wake up and hand the throne to whatever arrives first. Anxiety takes it on Monday, doubt takes it on Tuesday, distraction takes it by Wednesday, and then they wonder why their life feels scattered, exhausted, and out of control. A mind without a ruler does not remain empty. It is occupied by the loudest voice in the room. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than almost anyone who has ever lived. Before facing wars, political enemies, and the endless demands of an empire, he faced something far more dangerous, his own thoughts, because he knew that every action begins as a thought, and every destiny begins as a thought repeated so often it becomes a belief. Long before a man loses his discipline, he loses control of the conversation happening inside his own head. Look closely at your life, and you will see the evidence everywhere. Every fear that held you back started as a thought. Every excuse that delayed your progress started as a thought. Every habit that strengthened or weakened you was first nothing more than a sentence repeated inside your mind until it felt like truth. The throne was never taken by force. It was surrendered through repetition, one unchallenged thought at a time. This is why the ruling thought matters more than motivation. Motivation changes with weather, mood, and circumstance. A ruling thought remains. It becomes the lens through which you interpret every challenge that enters your life. Two men can face the same setback. One sees proof that he should quit. The other sees proof that he must continue. The event is identical. The ruler interpreting the event is different. So choose your ruler carefully, not a wish, not a vague hope, a command, a sentence powerful enough to survive a bad day, a failure, or a moment of doubt. Return to it every morning. Return to it when temptation appears. Return to it when life becomes difficult. Because the quality of your life will always rise or fall to the quality of the thought sitting on the throne of your mind. And the next law will reveal why most people lose that throne before the day has even begun. Law 2, the law of sacred silence. There is a reason most people fear silence. It is not because silence is empty. It is because silence reveals what noise has been hiding. The moment the music stops, the scrolling ends, and the distractions disappear, you are finally left alone with the one person you have been avoiding for years, yourself. And for many people, that meeting is more uncomfortable than any hardship they face in the outside world. Epictetus discovered this truth while living as a slave. Chains could restrict his body, but they could not enter the private territory of his mind unless he allowed them to. While other men searched for freedom in circumstances, he searched for it in awareness. He understood that a noisy mind is easily controlled because it never hears its own commands. It spends its entire life reacting, never ruling. A man who cannot sit quietly with himself for 10 minutes will struggle to stand firmly against the pressures of the world for 10 seconds. Pay attention to what happens when you are alone. Notice how quickly the hand reaches for the phone. Notice how urgently the mind searches for entertainment. That urgency is not boredom, it is escape. Deep down, most people are not addicted to information. They are addicted to avoiding the conversation waiting for them in silence, the fears they never examined, the wounds they never healed, the truths they never wanted to face. But something extraordinary happens when you stay in the silence long enough. The storm begins to settle. Thoughts that once felt overwhelming reveal themselves as passing shadows. Emotions that seemed powerful lose their grip. For the first time, you stop drowning in your mind and start observing it. And in that moment, a gap appears between you and your thoughts. That gap is where freedom begins. That gap is where self-mastery is born. Most people spend their lives trying to control the world around them while remaining strangers to the world within them. The Stoics chose a different path. They entered the silence willingly because they knew every kingdom must first be conquered from the inside. And what they discovered there leads directly to the third law, the law that determines whether life's storms break you or build you into something unshakable. Law 3, the law of the inner fortress. Most suffering begins the moment you try to control something that was never yours to control. Another person's opinion, the outcome of a situation, the future, the past. You reach for them anyway, and every time they slip through your fingers, anxiety tightens its grip. This is why so many people feel exhausted despite doing nothing physically demanding. They are fighting battles that cannot be won because they were never theirs to fight in the first place. When Rome exiled Epictetus, they could take his position, his comfort, and his security. But there was one thing they could never touch: his judgment, his response, his character. He understood a truth so powerful that 2,000 years later most people still struggle to live by it. The strongest fortress on earth is not built from stone, it is built from clarity. The clarity to know exactly what belongs to you and what does not. Imagine standing in the middle of a violent storm. Most people run through the rain trying to command the wind itself. They demand certainty from an uncertain world. They demand fairness from life. They demand control over people whose minds they will never own. And with every demand, they become weaker. But the Stoic does something different. He stops chasing the storm and starts strengthening the fortress. He accepts that the wind may rage, but the walls do not have to fall. This is the secret behind every calm and powerful person you have ever admired. They do not possess fewer problems. They possess stronger walls. Insults arrive, but they do not enter. Failure arrives, but it does not define them. Fear arrives, but it does not rule them. The outer world continues its chaos, while an unshaken center remains standing within. What looks like confidence from the outside is often nothing more than a fortress that has been reinforced for years. The moment you stop measuring your worth through things you cannot control, a strange freedom appears. The need for constant approval weakens. The fear of failure loses its authority. The future no longer feels like a threat that must be conquered before you can breathe. For the first time, your energy returns to the only territory that has ever truly belonged to you, your choices, your actions, and your response. And once a man learns to defend that territory, he becomes far more dangerous than someone who spends his life trying to control the world. Because the next law is where true power begins, not controlling circumstances, but controlling attention itself. Law 4. The law of commanded attention. Every war in history was fought over territory. Today, the most valuable territory is not land, gold, or power. It is attention, because whatever captures your attention eventually shapes your reality. The person you become 5 years from now is being built by what repeatedly occupies your mind today. This is why the battle for your future is not happening somewhere in the distance. It is happening in the next few seconds, in the moment you decide what deserves your focus and what does not. The ancient Stoics understood something modern society profits from keeping hidden. A distracted mind is an obedient mind. A man who cannot direct his own attention can be directed by anyone. His emotions can be manipulated. His fears can be amplified. His desires can be manufactured. Every notification, every distraction, every unnecessary piece of noise becomes another hand reaching for the steering wheel of his life. And the tragedy is that most people surrender control without ever noticing it happen. Imagine carrying a magnifying glass beneath the sun. Wherever you hold it, energy gathers. Hold it long enough and it creates fire. Your attention works the same way. Whatever you focus on grows. Focus on fear, and fear expands until it fills the horizon. Focus on obstacles, and they become mountains. Focus on discipline, growth, and purpose, and suddenly opportunities appear where others see only limitations. The world itself has not changed. The lens has. Marcus Aurelius warned himself constantly about this danger, not because he lacked discipline, but because he understood that even emperors could lose control of their attention. One moment of carelessness becomes an hour. 1 hour becomes a habit. 1 habit becomes a life. Most people believe their destiny is shaped by dramatic decisions. In reality, it is usually shaped by whatever repeatedly earns their attention when no one is watching. Look honestly at your own life. Where has your attention been going? What thoughts receive the most energy? What fears receive the most rehearsal? What distractions receive the best hours of your day? Because attention is never neutral. It is a vote. Every moment of focus is a vote for the person you are becoming, and the votes accumulate faster than you think. This is why the next law is so powerful. Once you learn to command your attention, you are finally ready to learn how to eliminate everything that weakens it. Law 5. The law of ruthless elimination. Most people believe their life is being destroyed by what they lack. More discipline, more confidence, more opportunities, more time. But if you study the lives of history's strongest men, you discover a different truth. They were not transformed by what they added. They were transformed by what they removed. Every masterpiece begins as a block of marble, and every great life begins as a process of elimination. A sculptor does not create a statue by attaching pieces to stone. He creates it by cutting away everything that does not belong. Strike after strike, day after day, he removes what hides the masterpiece beneath. Your life follows the same law: the distractions, the excuses, the unnecessary obligations, the habits that quietly drain your energy. They are not small inconveniences. They are excess marble standing between you and the person you are capable of becoming. Seneca warned that life is long enough to accomplish remarkable things, yet most people experience it as short because they surrender so much of it to the unnecessary. Look closely at what exhausts you. Many of the burdens you carry were never assigned to you by fate. You picked them up yourself. The need to impress people who do not care, the habit of revisiting old wounds, the endless consumption of information you never use. You call these things normal because they have been with you for years. But familiarity is not proof of value. Sometimes familiarity is simply proof that a chain has been worn for so long it no longer feels like a chain. This law requires courage because elimination feels like loss before it feels like freedom. The moment you remove a distraction, you feel its absence. The moment you walk away from a draining habit, you feel the discomfort it used to numb. The moment you stop seeking approval, you feel the silence where validation once lived. Most people mistake this discomfort for a sign they are moving in the wrong direction. In reality, it is often proof they have finally started moving in the right one. Ask yourself a brutal question. If the person you want to become arrived today, what would he immediately remove from your life? What conversation would he end? What habit would he abandon? What excuse would he refuse to entertain for another second? The answer is usually uncomfortable. That is why it is valuable. Because every great transformation begins with a decision that feels painful in the moment, but obvious in hindsight. And once you learn to remove what weakens you, you are ready for the next law, the law that separates temporary discipline from unbreakable discipline, the law of voluntary hardship. Law 6, the law of voluntary hardship. Comfort has never destroyed a man in a single day. It destroys him quietly. It softens his edges, weakens his resolve, trains him to run from difficulty instead of growing through it. And because the process is gradual, he mistakes comfort for peace, never realizing that what feels safe today may be the very thing making him fragile tomorrow. The greatest threat to your potential is rarely suffering. It is comfort that lasts too long. The Stoics understood this so deeply that they practiced hardship even when hardship was not required. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, would occasionally sleep on the floor, wear rough clothing, and eat the simplest food he could find, not because he enjoyed discomfort, but because he refused to become dependent on comfort. He wanted to know that if fortune abandoned him tomorrow, his character would remain standing. Most people train only when life forces them to. The Stoics trained before the battle ever arrived. Think about what happens when life suddenly becomes difficult. A setback, a rejection, a financial loss, a season of uncertainty. The untrained mind panics because it has spent years expecting ease. But the mind that has willingly faced discomfort before remains steady. It recognizes hardship as a familiar visitor, not an invading enemy. This is why some people collapse under pressure, while others seem to grow stronger. The pressure is often the same. The preparation is not. Every time you willingly choose the harder path, something invisible is being built inside you. Every workout completed when you wanted to quit. Every difficult conversation you refused to avoid. Every morning you acted despite not feeling motivated. These moments seem small while they are happening, yet they are quietly constructing a version of you that can carry heavier burdens than the person you are today. Strength is never created in moments of ease. Ease only reveals the strength that hardship already built. Most people spend their lives asking, "How do I make life easier?" The Stoics asked a far more powerful question. How do I make myself stronger? because easier circumstances do not guarantee peace. Stronger character does. The storm will come whether you prepare for it or not. The loss will come. The uncertainty will come. The challenge will come. The only question is whether you will meet those moments as the person comfort created or as the person hardship forged. And that leads to the seventh law, the law that transforms strength from an occasional act into a permanent identity. Law 7, the law of identity. Most people spend their lives trying to change their actions. Few ever think to change the thing that produces those actions. This is why so many transformations fail. They focus on behavior while ignoring identity. They try to force themselves to act like a disciplined person without ever becoming one in their own mind. For a while, effort carries them forward. Then the old identity pulls them back, and they return to the same habits they swore they had left behind. Marcus Aurelius never woke up trying to perform discipline. Discipline was already part of who he believed himself to be. There is a profound difference between saying, "I am trying to be disciplined," and saying, "I am a disciplined man." The first statement describes an activity. The second describes an identity. Activities require motivation. Identity creates consistency. When something becomes part of who you are, you stop debating it. A lion does not wake up each morning trying to act like a lion. It simply follows its nature. This is why every lasting transformation in history began with a shift in self-perception. The soldier becomes powerful the moment he sees himself as a protector rather than a man carrying a weapon. The leader becomes effective the moment he sees himself as responsible rather than important. The disciplined man succeeds because he no longer negotiates with weakness. He has stopped asking himself what he feels like doing and started asking what the person he has chosen to become would do in this moment. Most people are trapped inside stories they did not consciously write. I have always been lazy. I am not confident. I never finish what I start. They repeat these sentences for years, then wonder why their reality keeps reflecting them back. But identity is not fate. It is repetition. The story you tell yourself today becomes the evidence you collect tomorrow, and eventually that evidence becomes the prison you mistake for your personality. The strongest chains are rarely visible. They are made of beliefs repeated so often that they start sounding like facts. So choose your identity carefully, not based on your past, not based on your current circumstances, based on the standard you are willing to live by. Because the moment you stop identifying with your excuses, they lose their authority. The moment you stop identifying with your fears, they lose their power. And the moment you identify with discipline, resilience, and self-mastery, your actions begin aligning with them automatically. This is the hidden secret behind every extraordinary life. People think greatness is built by what a person does. In reality, greatness is built by who a person believes they are. And the final law is the one that protects that identity from being broken by time, failure, or the uncertainty of life itself. Law 8, the law of mortality. There is one law that stands above every other law you have heard tonight. A law so powerful that Marcus Aurelius returned to it again and again, not because he was obsessed with death, but because he understood that only those who remember death truly learn how to live. Most people move through life as though they have an unlimited supply of tomorrows. They spend years postponing what matters, delaying the conversation, delaying the dream, delaying the decision that could change everything. And time, silent and indifferent, continues moving without asking permission. Imagine standing at the edge of your final day, not as an old man in a distant future, but as a reality that could arrive far sooner than you expect. Suddenly, the things that consume most people's attention begin to lose their importance. The argument you could not stop replaying, the stranger's opinion, the fear that kept you from acting, They shrink beneath a larger truth. Life was never waiting for perfect conditions. It was waiting for your decision. Mortality strips away illusion and reveals what actually deserves your energy. The Stoics called this memento mori. Remember that you will die, not as a threat, as a liberation, because the man who remembers his time is limited stops living as though he can afford to waste it. He becomes harder to distract, harder to manipulate, harder to frighten. Every sunrise feels more valuable. Every meaningful action feels more urgent. Every moment becomes sharper because he knows it cannot be repeated. What others call intensity is often just awareness of time. Look honestly at your own life. How many dreams are waiting for a future that is not guaranteed? How many decisions have been postponed until someday? How many years have been traded away for comfort, hesitation, or fear? The greatest tragedy is not death itself. The greatest tragedy is reaching the end and realizing you were alive the entire time, but never fully lived. That is the wound Marcus Aurelius warned against, not dying, existing without purpose while death quietly approached. And this is why mortality is the final law, because it gives power to every law before it. The ruling thought matters because time is limited. Silence matters because time is limited. The inner fortress matters because time is limited. Attention matters because time is limited. Elimination matters because time is limited. Hardship matters because time is limited. Identity matters because time is limited. One day your story will end whether you are ready or not. The question is not whether that day will come. The question is whether, when it arrives, you will be able to look back and say that you ruled your mind instead of allowing the world to rule it for you. Law 9. The law of immediate action. There is a silent killer that has buried more dreams than failure ever could. It has stolen more potential than fear, more opportunities than bad luck, and more years than any enemy a man could face. Its name is delay, not dramatic failure, not catastrophic defeat. Delay. The habit of telling yourself you will begin tomorrow, while tomorrow quietly becomes next week, next year, and eventually a life that never happened. Most people do not lose their future in a single moment. They surrender it one postponement at a time. The ancient Stoics understood a truth that modern minds constantly forget. The perfect moment does not exist. Marcus Aurelius did not wait to feel ready before doing what duty demanded. The soldier on the battlefield does not wait for confidence before taking action. And the architect does not wait for inspiration before laying the first stone. Action comes first. Clarity follows. Yet most people spend their lives waiting for certainty, not realizing certainty is usually the reward for movement, not the requirement for it. Think about how many times your life could have changed if you had acted the first time the opportunity appeared. The conversation you never had, the business you never started, the habit you promised to begin, the goal you delayed because you felt unprepared. Every one of those moments carried the potential to alter the direction of your life. But hesitation stepped in, disguised itself as caution, and convinced you to stay exactly where you were. That is the cruelty of delay. It rarely looks dangerous while it is happening. Here is the uncomfortable truth. The future version of yourself is watching you right now. Not literally, but through the consequences of your actions. Every choice you make today is creating the reality he will inherit tomorrow. And when you postpone what matters, you are handing him a burden he never agreed to carry. Most people think they are delaying a task. In reality, they are delaying their own transformation. They are asking a stronger future version of themselves to solve problems they refuse to face today. The moment you understand this law, everything changes. You stop asking when the perfect time will arrive. You stop negotiating with hesitation. You stop waiting for motivation to grant permission, because you finally realize that action is not what follows courage. It is what creates courage. The first step is always the hardest because it destroys the illusion that thinking and doing are the same thing. And once a man learns to act immediately on what he knows must be done, he becomes extraordinarily dangerous to every weakness that once controlled him. Which leads us to the final law, the law that determines whether all of this wisdom becomes a temporary spark or a permanent transformation. Law 10. The law of relentless consistency. Most people believe success is built in moments of intensity, a burst of motivation, a powerful decision, a single breakthrough that changes everything overnight. But history tells a different story. Empires were not built in a day. Great warriors were not forged in a day. And no man has ever transformed his life through a single act of discipline. What separates the extraordinary from the ordinary is not intensity, it is consistency. The ability to continue long after the excitement has disappeared. Look at water, soft enough to slip through your fingers, weak enough that no one fears it. Yet given enough time, it can carve through mountains, reshape landscapes, and create canyons so vast they can be seen from space. Not because of its power in a single moment, but because it never stops. This is the force most people underestimate. They admire dramatic effort, while ignoring the quiet repetition that creates real transformation. The world notices the result. It rarely sees the years of consistency that produced it. Marcus Aurelius did not become wise because he reflected once. He reflected thousands of times. The Stoics did not become resilient because they practiced discipline for a week. They practiced it for a lifetime. Every day they returned to the same principles, the same standards, the same commitments, even when they were tired, even when progress was invisible, even when no one was watching, because they understood a truth that most people spend years learning the hard way. What you repeat becomes what you are. This is where most people fail. They expect immediate results from actions that require seasons to bear fruit. They plant a seed and dig it up a week later to check whether it is growing. They abandon the process because the reward is not immediate. But nature does not work that way. Strength does not work that way. Character does not work that way. The greatest transformations are happening precisely when it feels like nothing is happening. Beneath the surface, in silence, out of sight. The roots grow long before the tree becomes visible. So if there is one lesson to carry from this video, let it be this. Do not seek a perfect day. Seek a repeated day. Do not focus on changing your life overnight. Focus on winning today and then repeating it tomorrow. Because in the end, your destiny is not created by your biggest decision. It is created by your daily decisions. The laws you heard tonight will not change your life because you listened to them. They will change your life only if you live them. Day after day, week after week, year after year. Until discipline becomes identity, identity becomes character, and character becomes the legacy you leave behind long after you are gone. Before you leave, I want you to do something most people will never do. Forget all 10 laws for a moment and ask yourself one question. Which law exposed you? Which one made you uncomfortable? Which one revealed a weakness you can no longer pretend not to see? Because that is the law that has the power to change your life first. Growth rarely begins where you feel strong. It begins where the truth makes you uncomfortable. Years from now, you will not remember every sentence from this video. You will not remember every story or every example, but you will remember the decision you make after hearing it, the decision to continue drifting or the decision to take back control of your mind. Every extraordinary life begins with a moment that looks ordinary from the outside, a moment where someone quietly decides, enough. From this day forward, I will live differently. Remember what the Stoics understood. You do not control the future. You do not control the opinions of others. You do not control fortune, luck, or circumstance, but you do control your next choice, and your next choice has always been more powerful than your last mistake. The past is gone, the future is uncertain, but this moment belongs entirely to you. So stand guard at the gates of your mind, protect your attention, strengthen your character, choose discipline over comfort and purpose over distraction. Because the quality of your life will never rise above the quality of the mind that creates it. And if you can master that mind, there is very little in this world that can stop you. If you found value in this video, subscribe and join us on this journey of Stoic wisdom and self-mastery. And tell me in the comments, which of the 10 laws hit you the hardest? I read every comment. Until next time, remember, your mind can be your greatest prison or your greatest kingdom. The choice is yours.